It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. All right, so I just went through all the different websites, and I was looking here that Pam Bondi was on Fox News last night, the Attorney General, and said Monday that the suspect accused of assaulting a federal officer during the anti-ICE demonstrations, riots in Los Angeles have been identified. The U.S. Attorney identified Elpidio Reyna as the suspect who was captured on video, allegedly throwing rocks at federal officers in Paramount, California. The FBI initially asked for the public's help by offering $50,000 cash reward for information leading to the man's arrest. He was accused of injuring a federal officer after throwing rocks at law enforcement vehicles, according to the FBI. Bondi was a guest on Hannity when she broke the news to Sean. The FBI has identified him. The guy has just been identified, and they are doing a search warrant of his house as we speak. He's going to be on the most wanted list. He's been identified by the great police work of the FBI. So you can run, you can't hide. You know, I was just thinking, with facial recognition technology, for example, there was a video coming out last night from L.A. about looting going on. Mm-hmm. And it was like, how dumb are these people not wearing masks? Mm-hmm. That was the comment from people saying, what are you an idiot? With facial recognition technology, they're going to be able to get even from the side, they get a perfect portrait of you and put it out there. What I was thinking of is now, since everybody has the enhanced license, and I'm thinking when I go to TSA, they say everything is thrown out. Does that mean that when I put my license into that slot, you put your license in like you do your credit card almost. Mm-hmm. You put it in, and then the facial recognition technology hits your face, that it's simply recognizing my face to my license? Or does my face exist somewhere in the system because of my enhanced license?
I think both.
Well, if they say they don't save the facial recognition technology at TSA, does that mean they're tapping in? They have the potential? I will say this. Does the state of Texas have my picture? Is it just on that license, or do they have the picture? And I guess if I want to get a renewal, if I want to renew my license, do you have to get a picture taken again, or do they have that already in there?
No, if you needed to renew it, you can do it by mail for a certain period of time. So that picture is already there.
So they've got my picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I can't loot or pillage.
You might be able to loot.
I can loiter for a little bit until they tell me it's illegal. Loiter. I can loiter. Right?
You could ask some questions.
Well, I can't. Well, actually, because of my tendonitis in my ankle, pillaging and looting is out completely. I can't. Yeah. I can't run away from the cops.
I wouldn't litter. That'll get you tackled.
Somebody litters and gets busted of all the people. Here, bringing him in. What's he charged with? Assault?
Yeah. Littering.
Arson? Nah, he littered.
He littered. Something actually fell out of his pocket, but that's littering.
Yeah, he was eating a Slim Jim and just put threw the wrapper on the sidewalk. No, I'm just wondering. I mean, because if they were talking about the fact a lot of these people will be arrested under the Hobbs Act. Which means you're involved in this kind of mass demonstration at the same time doing it, committing other crimes involved in it.
Yeah, right.
And so, but said he's been identified by the great police work. So you can run, you can't hide. We're coming after you federally. If you assault a police officer, if you rob a store, if you loot, if you spit on police officers, we're coming after you. Bondi said federal authorities have the ability to go after looters and those throwing Molotov cocktails and committing other crimes under the Hobbs Act. Those who loot a business in California will face a maximum of 20 years in prison. Those who spit on federal law enforcement officers will also serve time.
Yeah. Interesting, I was reading during the break something from Leighton Woodhouse, who's a independent journalist. He is freelance, and this was published at the Free Press, Barry Weiss's website. And the headline, the title to the piece, is what really caught my eye. Delete that photo or we'll F you up. Again, Leighton Woodhouse, he writes, about 3 hours into the third day of the immigration protest in downtown Los Angeles, a dozen or so protesters started breaking up large rocks, lining the gap between the street and an off-ramp and hurling them onto the 101 below. The California Highway Patrol had closed the southbound side after protesters had tried to seize it. Police cars and SUVs were parked there, and you've probably seen the video. There's some videos of that.
I've seen it.
And they were getting pummeled by the rocks. As one of the officers drove away, a rock smashed the police car's windshield. You can watch some of the scene. In fact, he puts a link here, Leighton does. You can watch some of this scene in the video by the Free Press's Austin Jeffs here, and he puts a link there in this piece at the Free Press. This went on for at least an hour. I didn't see anyone get arrested. When one of the rock-throwing protesters saw me taking pictures, he ordered me to delete the ones that showed anyone who was unmasked. We'll F you up, he threatened. I deleted them. He gave me a fist bump. Rocks weren't the only projectiles. I saw protesters tossing commercial-grade fireworks at the police. We've talked about that, which sounded like bombs. Between the fireworks and the flashbangs, there was a concussive explosion about once a minute. I've been to dozens of mass protests like the one that exploded in Los Angeles on Friday. What I saw in Los Angeles on Sunday was different. It felt like it could be the prelude to something even worse. And he goes on to write about that experience. But that first part of it, again, will come at you. Make no mistake, these are dangerous people who wish to harm others and harm property, damage property. And if they see anybody and
hurt law enforcement.
And here's the thing that I've noticed too. You can go to, because I'm watching a lot of live streams on this whole thing, as you and I do. When you're watching that and you're not there, you're counting on these live streams that are coming from those areas. And there are so many people walking around with their phones recording it.
I know.
So, everybody's got their own channel these days, and they're just posting, a live stream, maybe just on their Facebook. Who knows? But I think to myself, all right, this is how authorities are able to get this information. And in the case of Leighton Woodhouse, here's a guy who's an independent journalist, a freelancer, and he's out there. And he's not, from what I know, not well known. Certainly wasn't well known by the protesters and those causing the damage here, and then was threatened. We'll F you up. If this gets out, you've got pictures of people not wearing masks. These are dangerous people. This is well organized. This isn't some kind of civil rights movement. This is the radicals, the very extreme radicals that live on the left that want this to go as haywire as it can possibly go.
You just look at the technology that exists out there today. You talk about everybody on the phone and then people putting out YouTube videos and videos on X and everything else. But the fact is law enforcement itself monitoring.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing what they can do with this technology. How they can focus in. I have the Samsung. What is it? S23.
Mm-hmm.
Still amazed that I can take something. I can take a picture, and then I crop it later on.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe the detail I get from 500 feet, 1,000 feet away.
Yeah, because when you crop it, you have the option of increasing the resolution, and you didn't have that before.
Yeah, I mean
I have the same phone.
This goes with this phone about a year and a half ago. I was with my dad. We were taking a drive, and I noticed a tower. I was out in Akron, New York, looking all the way across. There's a hill there in Akron, New York, by the way, where they filmed A Quiet Place 2. That little village where all the monsters come down in A Quiet Place 2 is Akron, New York. And there's a hill there right near the airport. My father always loves going to the airport. And you can see at times, if it's a clear day, all the way to Toronto, which would, by the way, the crow flies, probably be about 70 miles from that point. Maybe it's 65, 60. But I saw something out there. I didn't know what it was. I said, is that the CN Tower? And I took a picture of it, and then I cropped and zoomed, and then I also zoomed in and took the picture. And I forgot whether it was a crop or the zoom in. I couldn't believe it. It was a cell tower. And it was probably 10 miles away. I couldn't believe the detail of it on my phone.
Yeah.
Well, that technology is nothing compared to what they have right now in law enforcement. And I'm thinking to myself as I'm watching all the looting, I went, they can catch the majority of these people. I always think that whenever I go to the airport, which is quite often, I'll be there again this Friday to go see Dad. And when I prepay for parking, but everything is under your toll tag from the Dallas North Tollway. Everything is they know wherever you are. And I'm thinking to myself, when I pull up there to go into the airport and it says, "Hi, Gary McNamara," I'm like, oh my God, I can't hide.
Yeah.
And I think about I got the TSA pre-check. I fly all the time. Everywhere I go, there's cameras, and I'm thinking to myself, well, luckily I have no intention of committing a crime, but I always think I couldn't commit a crime. I'm too easy to follow. You can follow me everywhere.
Well, in today's world, everybody is very easy to find.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking to myself, you're out there, you're not wearing a mask. They got you.
Yeah. And that's what the piece by Leighton Woodhouse, that's funny because you and I were both essentially kind of during the top of the hour break reading on, but we were reading separate pieces here, and that's really what is, that the mob, this is why, of course, a great number of them wear masks because they don't want to be identified. They don't want to be, and post-COVID era, you can wear a mask, and while most people aren't wearing masks, if you see someone wearing a COVID mask, it's not out of the norm. It doesn't look completely out of place.
No, it doesn't.
And so they can get away with that. Of course, they're wearing, they're wearing a full, out the gator type, mask that goes over their face and covers everything. They're wearing sunglasses over their eyes and all of that. Quite unfortunately, the agents have to do that to protect their identity because they can be targeted personally. But these individuals who are committing crimes don't want to be found out. They don't want to be found by enforcement. And, again, there's only so far you can go, depending on what level you're willing to go in committing the crime here. Because if you're going to be actively involved in targeting law enforcement, at that point you're a threat, and there's going to be an active pursuit until you're found, whether you're wearing a mask or not. Because you go in and you find other people who aren't wearing a mask. Even if they didn't throw a rock, you get witnesses to find who knows this guy, who knows somebody who knows this guy. And that's law enforcement. That's investigation. And it should be done. If these individuals are harming officers or agents, they absolutely need to be found and they need to be prosecuted.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
As parts of the country in recent weeks have experienced off and on extreme heat events, for cattle producers, preparing now for what may be a long summer for livestock will protect herds from potential heat stress and related issues.
The plan here is to be ready with shades, to be ready with sprinklers, to be ready with bedding.
Alfredo DiCostanzo of University of Nebraska Extension says when it comes to managing heat stress in cattle,
it's a very comprehensive approach, but in many cases we need to start thinking about this very early on in the time period.
or when a locale or region has a break between extreme heat events. The comprehensive management approach not only includes methods to keep cattle cool.
Fly control. Flies, especially the barn fly, loads on these cattle and bites their legs, bites their faces. And so we want those flies to leave them alone so they're not stomping, adding to activity and heating those cattle up.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Interestingly enough, Eric, the guy who they caught who was throwing, this is the guy that you see. He's the one they broke the cinder blocks, and the ICE vehicles are going by, and he's throwing parts of the cinder block at every single vehicle that comes by.
Right.
Can you make us? Can you not stretch that to attempted murder? If you drop a cinder block off a bridge onto an interstate,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know.
I don't know.
It's gonna be assault, but he had one of the gaiters on, but you can see
Right.
the top part of his face.
Right, yeah.
Were they able to do? Can they do part? Can
Yes.
they take part facial recognition?
Yeah.
and then go down as to what from. If you're right around your nose, right where your cheeks start.
Well, a lot of it
your
has to
bonus,
do
can you
with the spacing of the eyes and the
Yeah.
cheekbones and everything else. It's very sophisticated technology.
Yeah, because he's got the gator on. So
Right. But and beyond that, if let's say they find, I don't know, a dozen matches and then they narrow it down to those matches that live in that area, right? So then you get to, all right, you go to those 3 that live in that area or 2 that live in that area and look on their social media. Are they posting anything about the protests or anything like that? I mean, that's how an investigation like that, would work. So it's not just the technology. It's also the fact that a lot of these activists are very proud of what
Public,
they're doing.
yeah,
And they're
exactly,
very
right.
public about what they're doing. They don't want to be found necessarily for the crime, but they do want to be known as heroes. And that's a conundrum that they face, and they don't, it's when you're out to be a radical criminal in this case, and you're committing a crime to facilitate your protest, then you really are more, your ego really wants to be fed in terms of being a hero because, again, I'm helping to defeat Trump. I mean, that's where their ultimate payoff is for themselves.
All I know is the evidence, that video, you're dead in front of a jury, federal jury.
Oh, yeah.
You're-
Yeah. It's not going to go well.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. All right, let's play more great audio. We played some audio earlier from Victor Davis Hanson, the great conservative columnist. And he, I forgot where we played. He was all over the place yesterday, but he was also on with John Solomon.
Yeah.
On Real America's Voice. Just talking in general about Gavin Newsom and what's going on in California. And earlier he just said, he goes, the meltdown in 3 days is like something he's never seen.
Yeah.
And you saw the mea culpa that Newsom was trying to do yesterday. And it was just like, and this is the one thing, there seems in politics, in the media, at least my experience in the media, most people that I meet have a healthy sense of the survival instinct.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
which requires great self-awareness.
Yes. And I see a complete lack of that
Yeah.
in Democrats right now, as if there's no awareness at all, you know, with everything that they've gone through, with the 2024 election, with where the polls show the American public is on illegal immigration, the fact of what the Democrats did for 4 years during Biden.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
oh, no, the border is secure. The border outright lied. You actually had a government of the United States lie to the American people and say, we just can't get a handle on the border, and they created the problem.
Yeah.
They alone actually created the problem. As we said, they're never going to be able to solve the problem. Why? They created the problem. The last thing they want to do is solve it. This isn't like this is a problem to be solved.
Right.
Like, well, organically, this thing happened. What do I do?
Yeah.
It was like, no, we open the borders. Why would we want to close them?
Right.
The whole goal was to open the border. And, you know, we've talked about that the blunt message coming out here, no matter how they try to spin it, is the fact that, number one, you're delusional. The media's the leftist media was delusional. The politicians were delusional. Oh, this started because of Trump. Are you nuts? And then this, which the American public is never going to accept, you've got these protesters defending illegal immigrant violent criminals, gang members, other violent crimes that they have committed, and they're saying to hell with the law-abiding U.S. citizen. We prioritize the freedom and liberty of illegal immigrant violent criminals. That, to me, is such a huge jump of a lack of self-awareness. It's really hard to comprehend how people can be completely not self-aware,
Right.
as to the situation that they're in. But here he is, Victor Davis Hanson, speaking about it yesterday.
SurveyMonkey had 30 aggregate polls, and they said that Gavin Newsom's polling 27%. We just saw a presidential poll. He's 2% of the Democratic Party think he should be their 2028 nominee. He's on the wrong side of this issue. We just had a CBS poll, 54%, despite the hysteria, support deportation. And we know that 75% want immediate deportation for criminals. So I don't quite understand what he's doing. He's made a series of blunders. He said that ICE was the problem. They were chaotic. They were reckless. That wasn't true. And then he got into a weird argument with Scott Bessant and said that he was going to suggest that California not hand over its federal income tax. And as Bessant pointed out, that's a felony to advocate taxpayers not pay the IRS. And I don't know what he was talking about. He said, well, we have $80 billion surplus versus what we take from the government, and we pay all the government's bills. That was complete lie. I mean, that was 1.5% of federal revenue. So I think he just keeps digging deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think he feels the Hispanic vote will be his salvation. But we just had a poll, as you remember, at 110 days on the Trump presidency, and the one demographic that was the most supportive of Trump was Hispanics at 63%. So when you have optics where somebody is waving the flag of the country under no circumstances they want to return to, and they're burning the flag of the country that on every avenue they demand that they get to stay here even if illegally, that's not a good optic at all.
It's seriously.
I mean, it's so bizarre that it's humorous.
Well, it's and and again, there's zero self-awareness in that scenario. You're not going to win over the people. Right is right, wrong is wrong. Nothing's going to change that. The reason the left wants us to be the civil rights movement is because when you think about pre-civil rights, there were a lot of wrongdoings. Institutionalized racism. And it was about righting the wrong. In this case, what's happening is the government is bound, they have a duty to the people to enforce the law. But when you condition a public, like the last administration did and other administrations have done, that it's not necessary to enforce some laws, that they can pick and choose which laws to enforce, then that public is going to be, they're going to become conditioned to think that they don't have to abide by certain laws because it's not enforceable. That's really, it's a different type of indoctrination, but that's exactly what's going on. And even if those individuals didn't grow up here in the United States, they're being taught that it's okay to be here and come here illegally, and there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. You're not breaking any laws that anybody cares about, and that is far from the case.
You know, we've heard a lot from, I'm sorry, but the insane Democrats of California. We also know that the minority party in California is the Republicans. Let's hear what the chairwoman of the California Republican Party, Corinne Rankin, had to say. The California Republican Party put out a statement, and we can't ignore that because they probably do represent, 40 to 45% of the people in California? Yeah, here we go. Yeah.
What we saw in Los Angeles was not a peaceful protest. Criminals attacked officers, police horses, and property with commercial-grade fireworks, rocks, hammers, and other weapons. They burned our flag while waving the flags of foreign nations like conquerors in our streets. Hundreds were not arrested or charged while lives and property were threatened.
Okay, now they had more of it, and they have it. You don't need to put the music in there, California Republican Party. Keep the music out. You don't need it.
Right. It's already dramatic enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Have the natural sound. It's a waste of time to do it. It's irritating. Don't do it. Mm-hmm. You don't need to add anything.
Yeah. No dramas
to
needed.
the insanity of what's going on.
Right.
All you need to do is have the pictures behind you.
Right. Yep.
And by the way, the music was too loud for the voice. The mix was bad also.
Yeah. Yeah. You're drowning out the voice.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do that. The voice is most important here.
Yeah. You can be handed something. Now, I'll say this: the White House did a good video on it. Mm-hmm. But I want to play this because I think that she should be censured. And this is Representative J.L. Paul. Here's what she had to say. Unbelievable. Absolutely. Complete lie. Complete lie is what she said yesterday at a protest here.
And Donald Trump calling out the National Guard unconstitutionally, illegally, without the governor's authorized approval. As Jaime said, that's something that has not happened since 1965. And it's hard to imagine that this time the National Guard were sent out to attack protesters that were exercising their constitutional obligation.
Right there.
It's a lie.
Absolute lie.
It's an absolute lie.
And it's, by the way, it's not unconstitutional. In fact, you've had the major liberal law professor said, no, it's unusual, but it's
Right.
But what's also unusual, because they go, it's unprecedented what the president's doing. It may be legal, but it's unprecedented. Yeah, so is a state and their politicians and the Democrats in Congress supporting violent, illegal immigrant criminals.
Yep.
That's a precedent you haven't seen to this degree.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a lie. It's a flat out lie. And the National Guard isn't sent out to attack anyone. Because what you're doing, you're stoking fear in people. When you tell a lie like that, you're saying the National Guard is ordered to attack people. That's a lie. That's completely out of line. But that is right on par for Jayapal.
And finally, one more.
All right.
Trump talking about Greta Thunberg. He was asked the question about Greta stating she's been kidnapped by the Israeli military.
Yeah.
Here we go.
All right.
Kidnapped by Israel, as she says? Was she kidnapped?
I think Israel has enough problems without kidnapping Greta Thunberg.
And secondly, are you going to
Is that what she said? She was kidnapped by Israel?
Yes, sir. Are you going to get rid of the test?
And he just shakes his head. He's just like shaking his head back and forth.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. It's just so silly. You know, she's got to be a victim at every turn, right?
Greta, yes.
Yeah. At every turn. I've been kidnapped.
Well, I mean, that was
How dare you?
That was
Greta.
an interesting time when she was jumping on climate change. It's like, okay, their expert is an emotional, screaming child.
Right.
That's the Democrats' expert on climate change.
Right.
They don't talk much about her anymore.
No.
But as you know, it's a natural progression, the natural evolution on the left to go from I wish to save the planet to I wish to support the terrorist group that will murder, rape, desecrate the bodies, commit a genocide against people. That's the natural progression.
Mm-hmm.
Is it because if you believe in genocide and you expand it out to everybody, then you have no more human beings on planet, and then the planet's the way it's supposed to be? If you believe in climate change, that life after humans is the goal, like the TV show?
Yeah, I guess.
That was stupid.
Right.
I watched it one day, and it was like, here's what life would be without humans. I'm like,
nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Nobody would be here.
Yeah. Are you programming to lions?
Yeah.
Because nobody cares. No humans care. Maybe that's why cable subscriptions have dropped. You know, we thought lions would be into this. We put them all over National Geographic and Discovery Channel. It's not happening.
Cats and dogs just would not watch us.
As much as we put TVs out in the wild, you would think our viewership would be through the roof.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right. So I got to go to the front page of Fox News and read you the headlines, as we always do.
Okay.
Every once in a while. You ready? Here we go.
Okay.
Trump takes decisive action against L.A. rioters. Trump voters sound alarm on national debt as the president's big, beautiful bill now faces heat. Maxine Waters' confrontation of the National Guardsmen. We keep going on through different ones. Riley Gaines shocked as fans turn on Simone Biles and heated transgender sports feud. All right. And then we go on and on and on and on and on. And then we get to the one here about Justin Bieber's wife in a bikini.
There it is.
Hailey Bieber flaunts curves in bikini photos as fans praise cheeky placement.
Okay.
Like, huh?
All right.
Huh?
All right.
We started doing this a couple of years ago. And we found out the conservative public, the Daily Caller used to do it. They used to have like all these hard news, and then here's an actress in a bikini.
Yeah.
But my favorite one, the Babylon Bee.
Mm.
And this is why they need to get out of business, because they need to be a parody instead of telling the truth. Here's their lead headline: Illegals help film Republican presidential campaign commercial.
Yep.
It's
exactly.
true.
It is true.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.